Hello and welcome to this James the Bike Guy, where today we're checking out the least expensive way to get into a high-quality mountain bike from a name brand. That's right, we're checking out the Giant ATX. This is the only sub $500 adult mountain bike that I'm aware of on sale from one of the major manufacturers of bike shop quality bikes. And we're going to be checking out this bike as well as its sister bike, the Liv Bliss, to talk about what do you get when you have less than $500 to spend on a bike. Checking out this bike, the Giant ATX comes in at that sub $500 price point right now. It rocks a front suspension fork. This is a XCE fork from SR Suntour, which means that it's preload adjust only. So essentially, there's really no damping that's happening in here, but it does help take the edge off of some bumps. You're going to have an ALUX aluminum frame that comes through, a drivetrain that's 3x up front, so low, medium, high gear, and then out back, a 7-speed rear freewheel. Now, this freewheel setup, of course, is not quite as nice as what you would get with a bike with a free hub body. And the quick definition or difference between freewheel and free hub body is really where the ratcheting mechanisms are in the back. So you've got to be able to coast, allow that wheel to spin, or be even able to backpedal. And on this style, this whole cluster threads onto the wheel, meaning that the ratcheting mechanism is in the freewheel, which is not quite a robust system as a free hub body, where a free hub has the hub of the wheel actually come out and be able to freewheel. That gives them a little bit more room for some additional bearings, additional bracing in the system. It also means that you can get a wider, range of different cassettes to go onto the back, which is all geekery to say that as you go up in price and you move out of, say, the ATX like this bike and into the Talon series, that next level above, you're going to be getting some additional durability from the drivetrain. The other place that's a bit different with this than many of the others that come in at bigger prices are going to be in the brakes. So you can see that brake is a mechanical system and it's operating a rim brake. So when you grab the lever, it clamps down on the rim, which is what's going to create the friction to slow down the wheel. This type of brake is inexpensive, it's functional and works well, but in muddy or wet terrain, not quite as good, and it does mean that there's a little more adjustment or maintenance that's required to keep a caliper brake like that working versus a disc brake that you'd get on that higher level Talon. Otherwise, though, you're still getting a real high-quality ALUX frame, so this is an all-aluminum frame. It does come with a threadless headset, which the difference here, a threadless system clamps your stem, which is this piece, clamps onto the part that goes down to the fork for a much more secure setup versus some of the box stores where that might be threaded, which uses a more antiquated way of connection. And then you're going to have this 26.0 handlebar and out back Giant saddle. And when comparing the ATX to its sister bike, the Liv Bliss, we're going to see a few things change between the two bikes. Well, the first off, the frame is entirely different. And that's because Liv is Giant's women's specific brand, meaning all of the parts and components on this bike are going to be adapted for the Liv Bliss model itself. The frame is still made out of the same ALUX aluminum. It's rocking virtually the same componentry, so the drivetrain, the wheels, the whole bit. But you'll notice on the handlebar, there's a few changes. It's got a different brake lever, which that's going to allow for a slightly shorter reach from the handlebar. The saddle is going to be a Liv-specific women's saddle. And then one other thing you might notice between these two bikes is going to be in wheel size. Now, that's not because the Liv gets bigger or smaller wheels, but instead, both the Liv and the Giant are both available in two different wheel sizes. And that's because the smaller frame sizes, the extra small, double extra small, are going to come with a 26-inch wheel like we see on this Giant ATX, whereas small and above come with a 27.5-inch wheel. And the larger wheel size means that this bike is going to be able to roll over things a bit better. It's going to be more stable. But also, you can't just slide a Giant wheel into a smaller bike and have a good riding experience. So it's great that both Liv and Giant are putting the smaller bikes with that 26-inch wheel and all the way up to the extra large bikes with 27.5. Few other small things to talk about before we find out what this bike weighs really comes in to what you can carry with it. So on the back end of these bikes, you'll notice we've got a lot of different mounts across the bike. So that means we can run a rack on the back of the bike, and it also has a spot for a direct mount kickstand, meaning that kickstand kind of slides out back instead of being mounted underneath where the cranks go and getting in the way of your pedal eventually. Pretty cool additional feature on the bike, but I really want to find out now what these bikes come in and weigh. All right, and the actual weight of the Liv Bliss size small with the 27.5-inch wheels comes in and weighs 29.34 pounds. So thanks for joining me to check out the Liv Bliss and the Giant ATX. Two bikes that you can buy today for under $500. And I'm curious your thoughts on these two bikes. So leave them down in the comments below and consider hitting subscribe while you browse the channel.